Located in the Salish Sea between Vancouver Island and the mainland are British Columbia's Gulf Islands. Our cruise explored 3 of these natural gems to speak to locals about what made them choose to leave the city behind and create a life of their own design. Visiting Galiano, Pender, and Salt Spring Islands, we spoke to inhabitants about their work, their migration to the island, and what they feel they have gained by choosing to leave city life behind. We learned about their search of a creative lifestyle balancing seeming isolation with the need to stay connected to family, friends, and the outer world.
Galiano, an investment in paradise. The purpose of this brochure is to provide potential buyers with an understanding of a truly unique real estate opportunity, available from McMillan Liddell, one of Canada's leading forest products companies. Well, they don't exist anymore. They went bankrupt.
When we first found out about this land and this community, we had a notion of having like an electronic cottage. That was a phrase that kept coming up. So there was always that image of having a rural life where you're really connected to real values and the landscape, but still, being able to take that experience back out into the world, which is part of what we saw was missing in a lot of our society. Well, one of the things we do a lot is meditate. So that gives us our peace and quiet, and gives us the grounding that we need to be able to, kind of absorb what's going on out there in the world and try to have some positive interaction with it.
We don't have a TV. We did when we had children in the house with us, but we don't have a television now. But of course we have the internet and you can get news there. But the TV thing was pretty big because we used it, but when the old analog signal was cut off, our television became a throwaway. So it's in the basement. We don't need it. We don't miss it. So it's part of being somewhat unplugged and at least having the choice when you tune in and want to find out what's going on, but you're not obsessed by it. We have a 350-acre park next door to us now that was slated just after we moved here to become a world-class destination resort, hotel, golf course, and marina.
But one of the obvious ways it seems to me that the landscape has changed, that there's huge amounts of protected land on this island, proportionally more than on other islands, which is the kind of the flip side of it having been so much of it owned by the logging company. So that's kind of like the good news that came out of the bad news. I don't know if I would call it paradise. It's a choice. You can create your paradise probably wherever you go. It's an inner thing, really, isn't it? But it's a choice of what kind of problems do you want to deal with in your life, and I would prefer to deal with schlepping maple leaves around and spreading them on the garden rather than sitting in a traffic jam all day or having to go and get my hair done or my nails done or something, I like the physical work. I like the chosen challenges that we've taken on. So I think there's a danger in kind of picturing or promoting this as a paradise, because it's not. If it were, it would be overpopulated. When Gary and I got together, I just said I wanted to live a life where I got to do basic human things like grow your food, build your house, educate your children,
live with your children.
Live with your children. Don't farm things out to everybody. So there was this sense of wanting an integration in our lives, and with all that integrity implies.
Yeah, oh yeah. Who wouldn't choose to do art all day if you couldn't? I mean, I would. I met a guy in Victoria. His name's Wayne, and he took me to the beach, and we were splitting some pieces of cedar. And so he taught me how to do it, how to hit the froe, hit through the log, and then you peel it, and it peels off, and the wood follows the grain. So if the wood has got a curve in it, then when you split the wood, it'll have a curve in it. It'll follow the grain. Whereas if you mill a piece of wood, it completely ignores where the grain goes. So you have this straight piece of wood. But if you can imagine a straight piece of wood and the grain left and came back, the wood is actually very weak in that spot. So the cedar wood, when it's split, is actually, they say, 5 to 7 times stronger than milled wood. It's an amazing wood to work with. It's got so much color and so much feel to it. It's amazing what I can find on the beach. So I threw you wood art. I created the business and decided to focus my shift away from more fencing and into 100% hand split cedar work. So I started doing more furniture and signs, and then got into art, doing more sculpture, and every piece is one of a kind. I am really drawn to nature because I find the wood, I salvage it, I go out in my boat or in my truck, use a beach access and go to the beach, find the wood, cut it to length, split that into as big as I can carry, and then I'll put that either in my boat or my truck and bring it back to my shop. Depending on the grain, if it's super nice, old growth, tight grain cedar, it's more of a furniture sculpture quality. It'll come right inside and start drying. If it's not going to split necessarily as tight, then I'll leave it outside for like fencing or like gate material. And my wife is also an artist, so she does more fiber art. So we have 3 Angora rabbits, and she brushes them and gets their fur, and then cards it and spins it into wool, and then uses it for her weaving. She has like an Etsy store and things like that. So she's doing art at the same time, and we do collaborative projects. So that's the time when we can work together. So often the things we've done before, I'll do like a funky frame, and then she'll make something inside the frame, whether it's fiber, or she's done a lot of wire and found beach glass and stone, stuff like that. Yeah, so I've built I guess you call it a custom workshop. It's a cob building, so it's got a stone base, and it's 1.5 foot thick monolithic walls, which are clay, sand, and straw. And you build it up maybe a foot at a time. You mix the clay, sand, and straw wet together, not too wet. Pile it up, let it dry a little overnight, keep piling it, and you can build right into your wall sculpture, anything you want. Pender, because of the size of the island, can actually only grow so much. So I've been told that the population is about 2,500 here, and it should max out at about between 4,000 and 5,000 people. And there's a lot of young people moving here now, and I see more young people of kind of all ages kind of moving here, and less being a retirement community. I don't have any plans to leave Pender. I mean, we built the first half of our house, and we've been living in it for 4 years. It's a straw bale house. It's the nicest house I've ever lived in, and it's very comfortable. So now we're building the second half of the house, which will be straw bale with living roofs again. And once we're in there, I don't think I'll want to leave. Yeah.
I'm Judith Walker, and we're in the Red Tree Gallery at Hope Bay, North Pender Island. I was born and raised in Virginia on the coast. I actually lived on a little island when I was a child and was always out in this kind of environment on the water and in the woods. I was living and working in Costa Rica. I was teaching there, and I just happened to meet this Canadian on the beach one day. And I've been here over 30 years now, so I found in Costa Rica that my work took on a very organic feel. Here it's much the same, but the forms are different, the shapes, the textures are a little bit different. I think because the tropics are so soft, the air is soft, the temperature is soft, the textures, are soft. And here it's a little craggier, it's a little more violent, but not in a negative way. I don't mean that, maybe dramatic. I started out with watercolor and graduated to oil, and then found that oil was difficult to work with. It started to affect my health. So I work mostly acrylic and mixed media now. My creative process. It is about riding a wave. It is about being in a trough and not knowing where you're going or what you're going to do next. And then suddenly something starts to work and you're riding the wave. And you ride the wave for some time until you hit the trough again. And then you have to regroup and move on. It is a brilliant community to live in. There are so many people here who are creative, who think out of the box, who care about one another. The efforts that have gone on over the last 30 years I've been here to build a community hall, to buy green space. There are differences of opinion, of course, but it's an inclusive community. Dealing with the ferries might be another issue for some people because they'll come and they'll buy property and then they'll leave because they can't tolerate the ferries. Like this past week, I've learned that there are 2 young families leaving the island, and I'm sad about that. It's a bittersweet thing. They're doing it because they need and want to, but we're losing young folks, and we need to keep our young folks. And sometimes it's hard because work here is somewhat limited. In 1998, the Hope Bay store, which had been here for almost 100 years, burned down. And the owner lost it to the bank. So 27 Pender Islanders came together, each one investing $10,000 to buy the property. And then they set about making it happen, getting construction mortgages, acquiring recycled materials. That experience sometimes was hard. There were humps and bumps, but it worked. And for people to come together in communities and make something happen like that is an amazing and wonderful thing. The same with the gallery. We're actually in our 12th year here, and to come together in a cooperative manner and run this business over that period of time is a huge success. I think the future holds great promise. This is not an area where development takes over. This is a place where people want to care for the environment and maintain it. And I hope over time that it continues to be much like it is.
Both Galliano and Pender Islands still maintain their small-town atmospheres. Salt Spring, for all its fame as an isolated island getaway, may be the future of the Gulf Islands. Its metropolitan feel springs from its higher population, size, and popularity. Salt Spring's balance of life on the mainland with the serene beauty of the land and sea is the definition of attainable paradise to some.
For me now that I've really thought a lot about that and got a feeling for it, it's this sort of sense of place is a spiritual thing. And I find a sort of a spiritual connection here that I'm not a particularly spiritual person, but I find this spiritual connection, and it's a natural connection at the same time. And so any place, I've lived in Switzerland when I was a kid, in Spain, and Italy and traveled a lot, and spent a lot of time in places like Bhutan and Tibet, and there's incredibly beautiful places all around the world. But so it's beautiful here, obviously, but for me, it's also something. This is where I belong. I do not what I used to do. I was like working on like 3 or 4 front page stories a week, but I still do consulting work. So. And one of the things that really bothered me about living in North Vancouver, and we were very lucky, great circle of friends and clients and so on, but this sort of interruption takes you away from the sort of rich thinking that you can do if you have a little bit more silence. So this gives us lots of silence, lots of quietness, lots of time. It gives me a lot of time to kind of think and bring things back down to a more normal human level. In order to sort of bring about social change around environmental issues, is you want to build communities that are sustainable communities, where people are living in tune with nature, and that then the community becomes the message. And I think that's actually what Salt Spring is in so many ways, that it is it's a sustainability message that words can't tell as powerfully. It just kind of speaks for itself. And so I think it's a great gift to Canada. The morality of the place is great, the ethics of the place, the sort of awareness. This is certainly the converted, right? And so these are people who've thought about these issues, and it's quite inspiring. It's not just people who drive electric vehicles, it's people who, plant, raise organic vegetables and live close to nature. And it's not just Salt Spring, it's all of the Gulf Islands, right? There is a different culture out here, and it's a very advanced culture.
One said to me that you'll find one of every type on this island. So from richest to poorest, craziest to sanest, most conservative to most liberal. So you can find every sort here. Certainly cultural diversity is maybe a little bit lacking, but I think that has something to do with the job opportunities, how to sustain here. There's a very strong queer community, and it's one of the niches on the island that is incredible and really welcoming. Our Pride Parade is one of the largest in BC, and it is such a family-oriented event. It's quite the polar opposite of the Pride Parade in Vancouver, for example. So it's not corporate, it's not, rated PG. So it is really a pleasure to be, surrounded by people like that. It's a beautiful island. It's absolutely remarkable. The arts community, the farming community, it becomes immediately apparent when you visit the island and go to the market and just see how incredibly diverse and rich this place is. But for me, I felt that there was a really special energy here, and just really wanted to achieve what those who get to live here get to experience on a daily basis. And then once you come here and you find out just how much more involved and caring the community is, it's a very special place. Of course, it's vastly different. The conveniences maybe aren't here, but that's not such a bad thing. I love not having the option to go to Starbucks or McDonald's, how incredibly freeing that is. Yeah, you don't get the variation of anything and everything that you could want, but it's a lifestyle choice. You choose to live a bit simpler and go
search out different options. People who want to come here and just try to find a way to make a go of it. I was lucky I was able to get a couple of part-time jobs, but it is a big struggle for a lot of people. And ironically, housing is almost as big of a problem now as getting employment. So those who have been working on the island for years, if they need to move, they have a huge challenge ahead of them to find appropriate housing, affordable housing, because of the increase in vacation rentals, people. But certainly there are a lot of people on the island who do have that higher level of education, and no, you end up working at the grocery store. There's nothing wrong with working at the brewery. I love it. You end up doing farming and like the woofing sort of thing when the season is there. You have to make those sacrifices for sure to maybe have a different type of job on Salt Spring than you would if you were in a city. But that's, again, it's the lifestyle choice. If you want to live here, then you do what you need to.
Leaving the mainland behind for a serene, natural life is more than walking away from seeing a Starbucks on every corner and spending time in traffic jams. The people we met on the Gulf Islands shared their choices with us and how they made their own paradise, a choice we all get to make if we wish. The Gulf Islands provide a beautiful backdrop to vibrant communities filled with creativity. Living here can present unique challenges, but as many here will tell you, island life makes it absolutely worth it.